Okay, so I weighed out my sodium hydroxide. So I weighed out 0021 grams of sodium hydroxide. So now what I'm going to do is I have this here. I'm going to press collect, which is up here. And we're going to start seeing a line being plotted across. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so you can see. So now what I'm going to do, my temperature is stable. I'm going to put in my sodium hydroxide and I'm going to begin to stir. And what you'll notice is that the dissolution of sodium hydroxide is going to create an exothermic reaction. So I'm going to see my solution's temperature increase, and you can see that happening here. So when you're stirring with your glass stir rod, you want to be careful not to stab your cup, because again, these are styrofoam. You want to just gently swirl the solution around, and that will allow your sodium hydroxide to go into solution. So we're going to keep doing this until we see my temperature stabilize off. And we'll see a plateau, and then you'll start to see the solution drop again. So I'm going to keep mixing, and you'll be able to see the sodium hydroxide in there. And we're just going to do that until it's dissolved. So what's really nice about this lab is all you're doing is recording temperature on this. And we'll be able to look back to look at our initial temperature. I could have written down the initial temperature to start. Probably would have been smart, but that's the beauty of data acquisition, is that we can use it to our advantage. So again, this was the dissolution of solid sodium hydroxide in distilled water. You can see most of it is about dissolved. Excellent. So 66, 67, I'm going to start seeing that plateau now, I feel, now that everything is dissolved. Great, so I'm going to leave that. And as you can see now, I'm flickering down to 65. The temperature is now going to drop. So that heat's slowly going to go back into the atmosphere. Right, it's going to leave this system slowly, naturally. It's not a perfect insulator, but the coffee cups do work. Great, and then we're going to push stop. So now this is the point where we're going to collect our data and weigh our final solution here. So that's the thing, we need to look at the mass of the solution, right? So I've already done the cup before, so this data is going to sit here and is going to stay, and as you can see, the temperature is going to keep dropping. So I'm going to rinse my stir bar. Always rinse once you're done. Or stir rod, rather. I'll dry that off. Put this guy in here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to weigh our solution. So we weighed our sodium hydroxide on the analytical balance, but because this is a liquid, any of the weighing of the cups is going to be done on the top loading balance. So I'm going to bring my scrap paper here, weigh my solution on the top loader. Okay. So the solution here, and essentially this dilute sodium hydroxide that you're going to have from reaction 1, that is just going to get put into the thermochemistry rinses in the front of the room. So here, so you can see I have you can see here I have the mass of my sodium hydroxide, I have the mass of my cup. Now the final mass is after the reaction has occurred. And I recorded that to be 102.05 grams. Right, so that's what I have there. And then subtracting these will give me the mass of the solution. So that you can do on your own, right? We will be able to do that. The cup mass of the solution. Now, final temperature observed. This is going to be the highest final temperature that you observed. And I'm going to move the camera over here just so you can see while I do this. So if you look, you can see our temperature is now dropping further. So my initial temperature right before this guy started, and you can see I started it, and it lingered around, I'd say, 19.74 degrees centigrade. So that would be, I would write that as my initial observed, 19.74 degrees centigrade. And my final temperature, which would be the highest. So what you would do is you can just scroll down on this list here. 21, 22, this one's easier to find because it's going to be your highest one. Let's see. 24. Looks like 24.68. 8. Yeah, I would say 24.68. 24.68 degrees centigrade. And that's what I have there. So the experimental data, that's all we're collecting. So we're going to subtract our initial from the final to give us the change. And then here, mass of our solution we're subtracting from there. So that's experimental number 1. I'm going to go through and show you our reaction 2. And we'll get on with reaction 3 after that. Okay? When we're moving on to our next reaction, what we can do here, we go to experiment and go to clear latest run. And that will reset everything for us, and we'll be able to start over again. Okay? So that's what's going to happen here. You're going to want to make sure to rinse your temperature probe as well. And let me zoom out so we can start back with the experimental again. So again, I'm going to rinse my temperature probe. Dry that off. And then I'll move on to part 2. See you in a bit.